All right, so we saw something that's a little bit different, something that goes off the beaten path of entrepreneurial movies that we've seen before. Did you like it?
I did. I loved it. It was like the feel-good movie of 2014.
Exactly. I kind of feel that way too. Stay tuned. We'll tell you what it is.
This is Mikel-Claire.
And this is Trey.
And we are the couple of entrepreneurs. We're here to share with you our journey of successes and setbacks as we enter the world of entrepreneurship now that we no longer have 9-to-5s due to the new normal of the world and the pandemic.
Join us as we race the clock to start earning money, gain consistency, and overcome self-doubts and uncertainty as we search for our voices and obtain personal and financial growth.
Drum roll, please. In case you've been wondering what the movie was that we were checking out, it is called Chef, a movie by Jon Favreau. It deals with entrepreneurship in the cooking space. A little bit different than stocks and bonds and hair creams and social media checkups and stuff like that. But I'm wondering if it kind of like held true to the same formula of those other movies.
I would say that it is a culinary movie because he was a chef. I think that what it did was it looked at his journey in a way that was led by purpose and happiness and the love of what he did, so the passion for what he did. So it kind of incorporated those things instead of just specifically being fed by money.
Yeah, seemed like money is oftentimes called the root of all evil, and there may be slivers of truth to it, but it's not the whole truth. I don't believe money is evil. I think that if you've got evil in your heart to begin with, and then you introduce money to it, it's going to emphasize whatever that evil is that's in your heart. But money in itself is not evil. And with this particular movie, it really wasn't about the wealth as much as it was about like chasing your purpose and having an entrepreneurial spirit for the payoff of, you know, living within your purpose.
But it was interesting too because his purpose was his passion. And so initially, even though he was actually working in his purpose as far as like being a chef for a very fine dining restaurant, he wasn't in charge. He still had a boss. The owner of the restaurant kind of dictated what it is that he did, how he cooked, what he cooked. And so he wasn't able to actually like use his creative genius as far as his culinary skills were concerned. So once he actually opened his food truck and was able to live not only in his purpose, but in his passion,
Right.
I think that's when his true happiness occurred and when like complete abundance started coming his way.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I realized in this movie is that there really isn't a villain in this movie. I mean, even the people that you don't necessarily want to root for, like his boss, was coming from a place of, you know, their truth. And his boss, even though we want him to allow the chef to do what he wants and create how he wants, we also are reminded, and very bluntly by him in the movie, he's like, listen, you know, all that stuff that you're doing is cool and all, but I'm in this to make money, and my customers like this specific type of cuisine. This is what sells. You know, that stuff that you're doing is cool, but nobody really wants to buy that. And I need you to understand that you work for me. You know, it was humbling to me because I don't want to like that boss. I don't. But if I'm in his position, and my position is, you know, I want to run this restaurant the way that I want to run it and make money from it, then everything he said was the absolute truth. You know, he wasn't disrespectful. Even when he was trying to tell his cooking staff that he needs to have a meeting, he looked at the staff and was like, yo, you got to look at him before you listen to me. He's like, I pay you. I pay your salary. All of that rang true. There wasn't anything wrong or evil in what he said and how he felt about it. But still, you still kind of innately feel that he's kind of like the bad guy. Or am I wrong?
No, I think Dustin Hoffman, who's the character who plays the owner of the restaurant, I think he could have approached it a little differently. I don't think he had to call out Carl Casper, who was the head chef that we're talking about in the movie.
Okay.
I don't think he had to call him out in front of the people that he employed. I think that approach could have been a little different, because there's a way to approach certain things, and you don't have to lessen someone's authority just because you might be above them in front of your employees. So I did see him somewhat as a villain. Like, I understood his reasoning behind it. I just think it could have been approached a little differently as the owner.
Right. Okay, I can see that. I can see where you're coming from with that.
And the other villain was the critic. I mean, it was his job to write reviews about the food and the cuisine and the restaurant and the chef and all of those things. But, well, I don't know. I mean, he could have been viewed as a villain in the movie, but just like you not viewing Dustin Hoffman as a villain, like, I didn't really view the critic as a villain in a way, because it was that spark that Carl needed in order to really look at what was being said. And sometimes the truth hurts. And he said over and over again, that hurt me. That really, like, put a dagger in my heart. But what did it do? It sparked him to fight back and to really look at what he was doing and realize that there was some truth in what the critic's saying as far as him not being the creative genius that he knew was in there. And so what did he do? He set off on a new adventure to find his actual purpose.
You know, there was another villain that's a little understated, and it was funny. He's a bit of comic relief. And Robert Downey Jr. played Casper's wife's ex-husband, if that makes sense. And it shows that sometimes when you're walking down a new path and in a new direction, there'll be unexpected challenges, and with those unexpected challenges could come unexpected allies. And we're talking about somebody who used to be your ex-wife's, boo thing, and you're coming to them hat in hand. And what's funny is, as interesting as that interaction was, Robert Downey Jr.'s character was testing him. He was pushing his buttons just to kind of see where he was. I don't know if it was necessarily on purpose, but he was definitely a quirky individual. But what happened, and what's really important, is that he became an ally by fronting him the money to get the food truck in order to get him started, regardless of whatever it was that they had in the past. And it's pretty obvious that he isn't over his ex-wife, because there's pictures of her all over the place, and they're still having, candid conversations about what they do behind closed doors. But even still, he still became an ally. I got one more little small example, and that was Casper's sous chef, who you cannot be mad at him for this moment. And it's the moment when Casper decides to walk out of the restaurant. And he's like, all right, man, how are you going to make all this food if you don't have a cooking staff? And he walks out, and his sous chef just stops and he's looking at the owner, and because this is his moment. And it may not have been Casper's moment, but it was his moment to step up and take the mantle and lead. And you want to feel some kind of way about that. You want to be like, man, why can't you be like John Leguizamo's character, who was ride or die regardless? But that's not everybody's path. And I don't think he chose to make that decision to stay and become the head chef out of spite and hatred. It was just, this was his moment. And you have to respect the fact that he was ready for it. And then they meet at the bar and they explain it. But, how do you feel about those two characters?
I think his name was Frank, the guy that you're talking about that stayed after Carl left. I don't think there's anything wrong with accepting opportunity when it calls. There's nothing wrong with that. He didn't disrespect Carl in any way. It wasn't like he worked directly for Carl. I mean, Carl wasn't the one paying his salary. So I don't see anything wrong with having responsibilities and then stepping up to the challenges as they arise. I don't think there's anything that he could have done differently in that situation, because at that moment, Carl couldn't have written him a check for his rent. You know what I mean? So I thought that he saw opportunity knocking and he answered the call. So there was absolutely nothing wrong with that in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And even, you're talking about John Leguizamo, who I think was one of his line cooks. Mm-hmm. He did eventually come when Carl said, hey, I have another opportunity, but he didn't leave initially either. So even though he was ride or die, he still knew that he had to get paid and he probably had other responsibilities. So he stayed initially as well. I didn't view either one of them did as anything wrong or spiteful or anything like that. I just think they did what was best for them in that moment.
I agree. I think that's just kind of like the brilliance of the writing of this particular movie. The whole movie, to me, was founded in like love for what you do, the love of the people that surround you and have your back, be it family and friends, the love of just passion and finding it. It seemed like the whole movie, he was chasing that. There's a moment in the movie as well where it's another kind of like potential villain moment that ends up turning into another example of love. And that is the assumed love interest that he has with what's her position? She's like the greeter at the door, a hostess. Mm-hmm. And there's one moment where they're looking at each other and it's like a little bit of tension and you kind of assume that they've got like some kind of relationship. And she says, we promised that we weren't going to do that. And then he says, come on, let me just cook for you. They have this moment of intimacy that's not based in the world of sex. It's the intimacy of the love of food. And it was put together so well because there's this shot of her sitting on the bed and she's looking. If you looked at just the footage by itself, it looks like she's getting ready to like, let's get it on kind of thing. And she's staring longingly off into the distance. And then it cuts back and you see Chef in there hooking it up. He's got the spatulas moving and the oil and a little bit of flame. And what's great is, he's tenderly putting some of the food together and there's like passion and love involved in it. So it was kind of like a love scene with food for somebody who you would assume would be somebody that he had like some other type of relationship with, which he probably did, but it took it in a totally different way that I just really appreciated.
One of the key things that I got from the movie was that it seemed like even though they were talking about passion and purpose, the importance of what came from it was like passion and purpose on your own terms. So even though he had a passion for the culinary arts and he was really good at it, when it wasn't on his own terms, like it took a turn that he really was losing his mind. He was kind of going crazy. He was like, well, I can't do this on my own terms, so I don't feel like it's actually living in my purpose or walking in my purpose. Mm-hmm. Did you view that in the movie or did you see that as something else?
No, I did. There was a scene that was kind of close to that in a previous movie that we watched in The Social Network, and it was when Mark Zuckerberg and his best friend were trying to figure out how to make this amazing project that they put together work. And his best friend is like, well, we got to figure out a way to market this and sell ads and stuff like that. And Mark Zuckerberg's whole attitude is like, no, we can't do that. We have to make this cool. It's all about cool and being accepted. And you have to keep in mind that these are at the time of their lives that they're making this, they're kids and they just want to do something fun and cool. At least that's how Mark saw it. And with Chef, there's a moment where he's speaking to the to the PR lady about, what the next step is going to be. And just like Mark's best friend, she sees this opportunity. She's like, you got like 20,000 followers. And there's this reality TV show, we can get the bag right now. We can get the money right now. And Chef was like, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about that. I just want to cook. All I want to do is cook. And I'm definitely not trying to be like some type of minstrel on TV just so I can get a check. He knew his purpose. He knew exactly what it was. The money wasn't the thing that was fueling his drive in order to be who he wanted to be.
There was another scene in the movie where he was teaching his son about how to prepare a Cuban sandwich, and they were just starting off on the food truck, and he was making food for people that had helped them move some of the equipment into the truck. So, and it was a free thing that, well, it wasn't free because they helped them move the stuff into the truck. So, but they had said, hey, if you help us, we'll give you the best sandwich you've ever had in your life. So he was teaching his son what to look for, how to know when the Cuban sandwich was done and not burned, and when the cheese was melted just right. And so his son, kind of burnt one. He was like, hey, it's ready. And he was like, well, this is burnt. We're not going to serve this. And his son looked at him and he was like, well, they're not paying for it. So he was upset, you could tell. So he kind of took him to the side, and they stepped off the truck a little bit, and he wasn't mean or hurtful in any way in what he said, but he told him, he said, yo, this is what I'm good at. He was like, I may not be a good father, I may not be a good husband. He said, but a chef, this is me. This is what I love and what I admire and respect. And he told him, he said, regardless of pay, no pay, you don't sully your name, you don't give less than quality if it's something that you respect and have love for. And so that, I think that was like a moment in there where we learned yet again, like this is his life, this is his purpose, and anything less than that is not worthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, one more thing before we close this out is, how did you feel about the music in the movie?
I personally absolutely loved it, because the large majority of the movie, when they first started out and got the truck and all that, was in Miami. So any type of Latin inspired music, for me personally, I really enjoy. It added to the flair of the cuisine that they were cooking, because the truck was actually a Cubano truck. And that just really elevated it to a whole other level of enjoyment for me. But what about you?
I believe the music was the understated additional character to the whole movie. It set the tone before you even knew what a particular scene was going to be about. The music kind of like put you in the right frame of mind, and then everything kind of unfolded. It was fantastic. When compared to the other movies that we watch, how would you rate or rank Chef as compared to the ones that we've already seen?
Personally, I think I would rate it probably, we think we've seen like 3 or 4, 3 that we've actually done. I think for me, it was my favorite. There was like a different vibe, a different feel to it. And like we've mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's more based off of love and family and passion versus like money and villainry. Oh my goodness, is that a villain tree? I don't even know the word villains and that type of thing. So for me, it just had more of a feel-good quality to it than the others did. No less a powerful entrepreneur, but still, it was more about abundance and purpose and life and passion.
For me, it ranks very high. I think it is my favorite entrepreneurial movie. Don't get me wrong, Wolf of Wall Street is hilarious. It's definitely in its own lane, but it centers around a lot of just greed and debauchery. The Madam C.J. Walker movie, which we will do a review on, it's struggle and strife and you making it overcoming, and that's fine too. And same with The Social Network. It was a little selfishy, little arrogant. But this movie here, from the word go until the closing credits, it's just feel good. There are times when he has to overcome and there are uncomfortable moments, but by the time the film is finished, you realize there aren't any real villains. You realize the overall purpose is love and family. And you just feel good because you want this man to win, and he does. Your heart flutters a little bit, and you realize that you don't have to be Darth Vader to become an entrepreneur. You can just be a regular person that loves what they do and still find a reason to wake up in the morning to keep doing it.
Was Darth Vader an entrepreneur? Or was
Well, I mean, Lord Vader was a bit of an entrepreneur,
like, what's
actually.
The connection there?
The Sith Lord is just the epitome of evil, and he did have entrepreneurial spirits because he wanted to unite all of the planets under one rule of law.
That's a whole other topic.
You lack purpose. Join me. I am your father. All right, now that's enough of that. Hey, this is a great place to put a pin in it. Thank you so much for hanging out. We are the couple of entrepreneurs. Do yourself a favor and ourselves a favor and hit that subscribe button. Please feel free to leave a comment. We will pop in from time to time to see what everybody's saying and thinking, and you can hear our peace of mind to go along with your peace of mind. You have been listening to the Couple of Entrepreneurs. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out.